With me today is Elaine Hughes. Elaine, nice to have you here. Please tell the audience about you and what you do.
Thank you, Andrew, for having me. Um, my name is Elaine Hughes. I have been, up until a year ago, CEO of the EA Hughes and Company. We are an executive search firm that does work in fashion consumer products and has done so for almost 30 years. I have personally been involved in the fashion industry since 1972. And 2 years ago, my firm was acquired by yet a larger executive search employment staffing company in the United States named Solomon Page. Solomon Page is a large organization with 14 separate divisions, and EA Hughes and Company now is one of their divisions.
Thank you, Elaine. So we're talking about the situation that COVID has caused in our industry and with jobs. So when furloughed people, a lot of people have been furloughed, unfortunately. When they come back, how will they regard their companies? Will they be grateful to be back or unhappy with their companies? How is the relationship going to be with those people and their companies?
Well, Andrew, I think the key word here is furloughed. A number of organizations have to address the fact that when businesses, particularly retail, need to close down for health safety reasons, there's a choice. You can be laid off or you can be furloughed. Furloughed is a very kind attempt for corporations to say to their employees, you are valued. We are in an uncertain future. We are concerned about the liquidity of our corporations. So basically, we're putting your employment on pause. And depending on how the world opens up again for retail, as we're seeing right now in China and in Europe and eventually in the United States, people will be invited to come back. I don't believe that's going to be everybody. I think that the relationship with the company that an individual has is very personal. And if the company certainly has done a furlough, I think it is the individuals should be there understanding that this is a kindness on on their corporation rather than just a pure layoff and pretty much finite unemployment.
Okay. And the people who, I'm sure that a lot of people who are furloughed or people even who are let go, they must hear from their friends and family, well, you just got to pivot. This is what you do. But what does a pivot look like for people who are unemployed in our industry? What are the opportunities and what does one do to pivot, actually? Is there assistance anywhere? What's your opinion?
Pivot is a word. You know, it was like when e-commerce became an important factor for distribution. People finally, particularly the business community, the retail community, started understanding. We started using the word omni-channel, which meant a lot of different directions.
Yep.
Pivot means pretty much the same thing. It's synonymous with change. And every individual, despite what your job function is, if you're in the textile industry, so if you're an engineer, if you're a stylist, a design, quality control, it is what are those core competencies? And if you find that your company has laid you off because maybe there were 20 people in quality control, the production capacity does not call for that much, so half are laid off, then you need to understand what quality control is and how you can make a change. Well, there are chemical companies, there are healthcare companies, there are a number of companies that have quality control, and it's the basic skill sets. And you say, well, where is their assistance? I think people are going to find out that this is a huge consulting opportunity. So whether it is the educational institutions, it's private institutions, people will receive assistance. And probably one of the biggest places is always going to be online. So for instance, I have been asked to speak from time to students at various universities, and I also sit on the North Carolina Textile Foundation. So when a young designer says to me, you know, what's my career opportunities, I said, you have to think about where the sustainable part of a design position is. And if you are in a technical design area, that is one piece for you to go into, let's say bra design or intimate apparel design. The other piece is on this athletic wear. And the other way you would pivot if you're in design, considering your skill sets, is production. Because again, there is a commonality of skill sets. So I think that, but you need to have an open mind to that change and not say, well, oh, this is the lane I'm in. You've got to be able to change those lanes. And that comes through networking, that comes through research, and that comes through, communication.
Thank you. I understand. And do the companies, the larger companies, do they have an HR department capable of helping families navigate through the COVID crisis?
It really depends on the company. The apparel industries, there's a big difference between retail and apparel. Retail, vertical retail, usually has had very sophisticated human resource departments, and they are, shall we say, very customer friendly, and their customer are the employees. The apparel businesses, it depends on the apparel company, and it depends on how they value the human asset, and that's different from company to company.
I see. Okay, let's talk about the fashion industry in general. Fashion industry, from my perspective, from a lot of people that I talk to, has been hurt. It's been changed. And what are the industries that people who are currently working in the fashion industry that they should look at? What would you think is the best place for them to consider looking, where their skills are most appropriate?
Well, I think I learned through my career as a recruiter that there were certain industries where there was a continuation. The one that is the least secure is high fashion, because fashion changes, tastes change. But there was always going to be a fashion component to the human race, and that goes back to ancient times. It just depends on how it manifests itself. One of the sustainable industries for careers is footwear. It's extraordinary. Accessories, handbags used to be sustainable. Again, I think we've oversaturated it, but it's still not going to go away. Accessories is actually a statement, particularly for women. They may not be dressed particularly well or have very expensive clothes, but they will spend that money on let's say a Chanel or a Louis Vuitton bag. The other area is basics. We will always have an intimate apparel underwear business, and those businesses sustain themselves and they continue to grow. And they are also at the forefront of what I would say is textile technology, along with the athletic wear and more casual product. So it will continue. It's just going to continue in a different format.
That's really helpful. Thank you. So let's talk about our jeans industry. The jobs that might disappear now, do you think they're going to come back? What is it going to look like in our industry, in your opinion, in the next 18 months to 36 months?
Well, I think I sort of dated myself when I said I started in 1972.
I know you actually are the only person I met that's got an earlier start date than me.
Well, I started when I was in school. But one of the things, I'm sure my audience is probably an average age of 20 years younger than me in their 40s. But I remember the days of the denim business where there was Wrangler, Lee, and Levi. And some of these, the denim the word lycra hadn't been discovered in the fiber content of a denim. It was all poly cotton or 100% cotton. So that product literally stood in the corner by itself. And it wasn't until the 70s when, denim became a fashion equivalent because of the generation that it started to change. And then when we reached the 80s and, all of a sudden there was an enormous amount of wealth, particularly in the United States, everybody started to experiment with different fibers. And all of a sudden jeans, had Lycra content. So when you put them on, they were comfortable. And then we went into the designer jean craze, where all of a sudden jeans are over $200 a pair. So I think that jeans as a category will be an essential part of wardrobe for generations to come. It's not going to go away. It's just going to be displayed in different formats, whether it's color, whether it's a different fiber. Right now, everybody's walking around with jeans like somebody took a razor blade to them. That too will change. And in that, people will have not one pair of jeans, they may have 10 pair of jeans. They may have jeans in white, pink, and also jeans are genderless, which is terrific, and ageless. So I just see that the denim business will continue. And right now, I think we all have to understand, we have been spoiled with technology. We want everything right away. We want everything fast. We're entering an era where we have a little bit of a pause, and patience is required. And in that, I think we will see that there will be a resurgence next year. The analogy I'd like to use for all of you that are listening to this, and I like to think it's a global community, it's no different than when a farmer who has hundreds of acres and a blight has hit, a drought has hit. Does the farmer abandon the farm? No. The farmer goes back, tills it, puts more seeds down, and hopes that the next season there won't be a drought or locust or whatever. And that continues. And that's pretty much where we are. I think next year will be a better year for all of us, and we just need to have the patience and the fortitude to withstand it.
That's a great metaphor to use for what's happening. Thank you. But let's go to fashion schools. New York has lots of schools. Is there any impact on fashion students? Well, obviously there is this year. Those kids that graduate this year are going to have problems getting internships. They're going to have problems getting work. How do you see the next couple of years for fashion schools? Are the students that graduate going to find work?
Well, I had sat on the board of FIT. They have a global fashion management certificate, and it's meant for individuals that are in the fashion industry and, just like any graduate degree, want to return to school and apply what they've learned in even a bigger format. And it's a global program. And the students take trips globally, whether it's Paris or they go to China, to really understand the global impact. Schools have to do something, and I sit on the board of a few colleges. I'm not only adamant about the internship programs that need to start right after sophomore year, but a continuation of a database for these students and a department to help them network. There are plenty of people that graduated, let's use FIT as an example, or Parsons in New York as an example. The schools really should put an effort and put money behind a database for the students, and in that, almost create a version of an employment agency. And frankly, corporations would find it a tremendous savings, and maybe those same corporations will go back and support more programs. Is there going to be somewhat of a recession for positions going forward for the next year? Yes. But what I've said to those students, and I was asked to speak very recently to a class at FIT about 2 weeks ago, is you need to be prepared to pretty much do anything. You can't go in and say to an employer, well, this is, who I am and what I want to do. You present your credentials and then say, what can I do for you? And in that, opportunities will arise.
Honestly, I agree with almost everything you said. I think it's really great to hear it from you. And thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Well, it is a pleasure. And going forward, if anybody has any questions, I'm easy to reach, and I'd be delighted to give some advice.
Thank you. And anybody out there watching, you can go to me and probably have access to me, and I'll put you in touch with Elaine. Thank you, Elaine.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.